Hey, I'm Zarina Matcha, and you're watching The Rational Female, formerly known as Non-Feminist Gal. One of the main reasons why I am so strongly against feminism is because feminism operates very much like a religion. Personally, I look at feminism in the same way as I look at the fundamentalist aspects of the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. For clarification, when I use the word religion in this video, I am mainly referring to those religions, not so much the Eastern religions. Feminism claims that women are systemically oppressed, just as fundamentalist Christianity claims that all humans are born with original sin. In feminism, the evil is patriarchy, and in Christianity, the evil is the devil. The solution in feminism is for all women to accept that we are collectively oppressed and that we must overthrow this patriarchal system in order to be liberated. The solution in Christianity is for all people to accept Jesus Christ into their hearts as their Lord and Saviour, and that we must accept his word to get into heaven. Feminism, like Christianity, does have varying denominations. Christianity has Catholics, Protestants, Anglicans, Evangelicans, Mormons, Lutherans, Methodists, and hundreds of others. Likewise, feminism has radical feminism, liberal feminism, intersectional feminism, Marxist feminism, lipstick feminism, eco-feminism, anti-trans feminism, sex-positive feminism, black feminism, cultural feminism, and so on. And on it goes. While there may be variations within these denominations, all of the assertions do fall under one umbrella. Christianity is united under one core idea, the idea that all humans are born with original sin and must repent to be saved and get into heaven. Feminism is also united under one core idea, that all women are oppressed and must be liberated from the patriarchy. No matter the variations within certain schools of Christianity or feminism, this core idea must be remembered. I think understanding this is really important. Most people think that feminism is all about equality and women being treated the same as men, or that women should have choices in what we wish to do with our lives. Yet when we say this, the danger is that we forget what feminism is truly founded upon. Feminism works by telling women that we are oppressed, in the same way that Christianity thrived for thousands of years by telling people that they were sinners. For 6 decades, feminism has been united under the belief that women are victims of an unfair patriarchy and that we are at a social disadvantage. As I often assert, prior to the 1960s, the idea of women as an oppressed class under a patriarchal system wasn't really a part of early women's movements. Early women's suffrage, what some refer to as first wave feminism, never told women that they were oppressed by a patriarchy. Patriarchy theory is very new and became prevalent around the 1960s with the rise of cultural Marxism in academic thought. To understand any religion, it helps to examine the core fundamental ideas of it. Identifying the fundamental tenets can provide context as to why people who associate with those ideas hold the views that they do. When feminists have made statements such as housewives are unpaid slaves, or a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, or yes, all men are rapists, these claims are rooted in the fundamentalist tenets of feminism. I think that the core fundamental tenets of feminism can be summed up in 4 key points. Number 1, women are systemically, socially, politically, and economically oppressed by a patriarchal system due to institutional sexism. 2, men have created systems to benefit from their male privilege and thus oppress and control women by exercising this privilege. 3, women have been relegated to the status of housewife and homemaker throughout human history and thus have been oppressed in this role by the male-dominated patriarchy. 4, women must collectively work to overthrow the patriarchy through rejecting gender roles and rejecting the idea that there are any innate differences between men and women, as these ideas set women back and keep women relegated in their role of wife and mother. I think that's a fair and reasonable summary of the 4 core tenets of feminism. Needless to say, I think that these ideas are ridiculous, simplistic, and untrue when actually looked into, and a bit of research can help anyone see that they're all based on a distorted, revisionist view of human history that ignores biology and evolution. I have several videos that really break down and discuss some of these distorted myths that feminism has created, including the myth that we live in a patriarchy. Check out my playlist discussing feminism in the description box below to watch some of these videos. One of the key elements of feminism which makes it very similar to a religion is how feminism is very anti-science. Feminism, usually, is against the idea that women and men are biologically different because this views this as limiting to women. The irony is, over the last century, women have been able to go against our biological gender roles thanks to contributions and inventions made by men. One obvious example is the invention of birth control, which has allowed women to postpone having children or even decide not to have children and instead focus on our careers. As the contemporary feminist movement took off, it took much of the credit for things that were really just examples of social progress and modernism. Many feminists are against the scientific claims that men and women are biologically, physically, and chemically different. They view this as oppressive and harmful and promoting problematic ideas. Neurosexism was a term coined by a philosopher named Cordelia Fine, who wrote the book Delusions of Gender, claiming that scientific claims about male and female differences are sexist and reinforce harmful bias against women. In 2006, neuropsychiatrist Luann Brizardine released a book called The Female Brain, which examines the innate biological differences in women's brains compared to men's brains. She asserts that these differences are minor, and that for the most part, male and female brain structures are mostly very similar, but we do have a few small differences based on how we view the world and process information. These differences can help explain certain things about men and women, such as why women are more likely to choose certain professions compared to men, or why women are more cooperative and have higher emotional intuition than men. The book is actually very pro-women. Needless to say, many of the negative reviews on Amazon and Goodreads are from feminists who cite Brizardine's claims as sexist. This is very similar to Christian fundamentalists being against evolution, who claim that evolution goes against God, and that the Big Bang Theory puts a dent in the Christian theory of intelligent design. What many don't realize is that when feminists make assertions like saying that men and women are different is sexist, their ideas are rooted in social constructionist ideas of gender, not scientific ideas. Social constructionism asserts that ideas such as biology and physics are rooted in collaborative consensus, i.e. shared beliefs, rather than objective observation. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, and I know that science is not perfect and 100% objective because humans are not this way. However, I trust science more than I trust feminism, because science strives to be objective and accurate, whereas feminism does not. Feminism actively searches for bias as a way to serve its own political agenda. This is why some feminists will even go as far as to claim that science is sexist or use sexism as a straw man to write off anything that compares differences in male and female behavior. I would far rather listen to and trust people who have actually studied evolution and neuroscience than people who hold degrees in gender studies or believe that gender is a social construct. The latter is an assertion based on theory rather than biology, which is based on empirical evidence. Subsequently, feminism is all based on theory, just like most religions. Religions don't base their information on quantitative research and analysis and facts. Facts don't care about subjective feelings or sexism. Facts are facts. It doesn't matter how many feminists are hurt or upset over the idea that men and women do have some general differences. These differences don't mean that we strip away the individual, or that women can't be doctors and CEOs and men can't be stay-at-home dads, or that some women have higher sex drives than men, or that some women may prefer action novels and murder mysteries instead of romance novels. All these differences do is highlight general, overarching differences based on scientific evidence as a way to explain general behavioral patterns. Needless to say, when we look at people on an individual level, of course there are going to be differences because everyone is unique. But there are 8 billion people on the planet, and it's impossible to try and measure each and every one of them. This is why scientists use generalizations, because they are trying to look for observable patterns. As a humanist, I do think that each one of us is an individual, and that we are all unique and different, and that we must treat each other as individuals on a basic level. But that's no reason to ignore science, and it's certainly no reason to buy into feminist propaganda such as neurosexism and other rather ridiculous assertions that are just that, assertions. Another way in which feminism operates like a religion is through lobbying. The Hays Code of the 1920s was a Christian conservative doctrine used by Hollywood to censor what kind of content should be and not be allowed to shown in films. If we're not careful, we could be heading down a path where content becomes censored, or even where people end up being murdered for producing content. This has already happened, such as in 2015, when a group of Parisian artists were murdered for drawing cartoons. Unsurprisingly, Western feminists and social justice activists did not lobby for freedom of speech, they lobbied for people's rights to not be offended, or they simply remained silent. Feminist lobbyist groups are part of politics and they hold large amounts of power. These include UN Women, the National Organisation for Women, and the UK Minister for Women and Equalities groups. These lobbyist groups have lots of power because they influence and dictate the sort of information that we receive. This is one of the reasons why so many people believe that feminism is simply about gender equality between the sexes. In 2014, English actress Emma Watson was commissioned by the UN Women to advocate for he for she, which is essentially yet another attempt by feminists to make men accommodate feminist desires. Although she claimed to advocate for gender equality, the advocation is on the basis of what women, or what feminists, desire. True gender equality is about women and men helping each other to make social and political progress. I do not believe that women are fundamentally an oppressed social class across the world. I think that both men and women face social and political hardships, yet feminism only cares about women's issues and cites this in the name of equality, even though arguably it doesn't really care about women at all, but that's for a whole different video. I have a full video on this channel citing 10 issues facing men and boys in the UK, which can be applied on a global level as well, all of which are largely ignored by feminism. How can feminism champion itself for being the movement for gender equality while simultaneously refusing to even acknowledge men's issues? This is not equality, it is pure sexism. Equality should strive to see how both men and women are socially disadvantaged and to see what we can do to solve this. But feminism doesn't want that. In 1972, feminists campaigned for the legislation of the Equal Rights Amendment in America, which would make men and women in America entirely equal under the law. While on paper this may sound like a good thing, it would have led to women being drafted for the war, and that certain privileges for older women and married women, such as child support and alimony, would have been abolished. Furthermore, when pushed to the logical extreme, a sex-neutral society where men and women are treated as interchangeable means the abolishment of sex-segregated spaces such as public bathrooms, domestic abuse shelters, swimming pool changing rooms, or any men's-only and women's-only spaces. It's rather alarming that many are currently lobbying for this right now. I don't deny that transsexual women who are on hormone therapy and who live and present as women do deserve to also be referred to as women. But erasing the biological definition of sex all traces back to feminism and by extension cultural Marxism or neo-Marxism or critical theory. The term is all the same thing. Ironically, many contemporary feminists known as TERFs, who are against this erasure of biology from sex, seem to forget that the roots of lobbying for sex-neutral language does come from feminism. It is feminism which pushed the idea initially of gender being a social construct and that women should seek to erase gender roles. It seems that in the process of lobbying for the erasure of gender roles, feminism is now slowly erasing what it truly even means to be a woman in contemporary society. This lack of internal logic and frequent contradictions is another key trait of religions. In the Bible, the Old Testament God is angry and controlling, yet Jesus in the New Testament is loving and forgiving. Direct contradictions within a religious group can confuse members, thus it's no wonder that they have so many denominations. Most feminists are in constant conflict with each other over what sort of feminism is the right sort of feminism to follow. Some feminists support prostitution while others are against it. Some feminists support trans women while others say that trans women are not real women. Some feminists view capitalism as the root of all evil, while other feminists are pro-capitalism, and so on. Many feminists tend to only be close friends with other feminists. I do understand wanting to be around like-minded people. This is perfectly natural. However, when we only surround ourselves with people who think and view the world as we do, we end up living in an echo chamber. This is deeply unhealthy because it can lead to dogma and groupthink mentality. This is also why many feminists can become defensive when their views are challenged. If you only surround yourself with those who parrot your opinions back to you, then you won't be open to coexisting among different ideas. Personally, I have friends who do identify as feminists, although in a more moderate and less militant sense, friends who are critical of feminism and who have similar views to me, and friends who have no real opinion on feminism or on politics in general. I'd say I have quite a good balance overall regarding friends having various opinions and being from different walks of life. My self-described feminist friends are naturally quite open-minded and have a more relaxed attitude towards feminism. They're certainly more Caitlin Moran than Julie Bendel. This doesn't bother me, as I have no issue with having friends who have different political opinions to me, as we are all different and no two people can see the world identically. As I have generally said on this channel, I don't really have any issue with liberal-minded feminists, as I don't really regard these people as proper feminists or even view liberal feminism as really feminism. My issue is really with the fundamentalist feminists, the feminists with a capital F, who believe that we live in a patriarchy, that the patriarchy must be abolished, that women are all oppressed, and that men hold all the power throughout the world. This may sound rather controversial, but I do wonder if feminists would be much happier if they could go and form their own separate communities and societies where they live and practice the views and the values that they wish. The majority of women are not feminists. Socially conservative women are obviously not feminists, and more liberal, independent-minded women don't really need feminism either, as we're too busy doing our own thing to worry about being oppressed. Most women don't have any real problems with men, and feminism is very antithetical to general social harmony between men and women. Thus, perhaps, long-term, feminists would be better off forming their own communities where they can live in their feminist utopia in peace, rather than pushing their views onto the rest of society. This is why I respect the Amish and the Mormons and the Orthodox Jews. They form their own communities where they practice their views and their values, and they don't enforce these views onto everyone else. Unfortunately, to go back to feminism being a religion, most religions spread through attempting to convert others to their religion. Most feminists wish to reform the world into a feminist vision of what the world should be like. This is similar to Jehovah's Witnesses, who spread the word of Jehovah through knocking on people's doors. Instead of going and leaving people who don't have absolutist worldviews alone, feminism wants every woman and man to submit to and follow a feminist-oriented worldview. This is rather terrifying, which is why people must educate themselves on feminism and understand what feminism actually is, so that this movement slowly tapers off away from the mainstream. Overall, I think comparing feminism to a religion really helps to understand what feminism actually is and how it operates. When we remember the 4 key tenets of feminism, women are systemically oppressed, men are collectively privileged, women have been placed in a demeaning gender role since the dawn of time as housewives, and women must collectively overthrow the patriarchy in order to be liberated, then we can truly identify the problems of feminism. Such claims are so unfounded and sexist and lack any real historical evidence, particularly when examining the history of the modern West. When we understand just how militant, misandric, and toxic feminism is, then we can see that it is not a movement that celebrates and uplifts women or lobbies for better relations between the sexes. It is a movement that seeks to tear down the so-called male-dominated establishment through pitting men and women against each other to establish some rather strange feminist world order. Whatever your political alignment or general life philosophy, there is no real good reason for any woman to buy into feminism or to accept feminism as her lord and saviour. But what do you think? Is feminism like a religion? Can you see any parallels between feminism and the Abrahamic religions in terms of how they operate? Do let me know below, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing to stay up to date with the content that I post, and also consider joining my Discord group Liberals Against Feminism for discussions around feminism with like-minded people. For 6 decades, feminism has been united under the in order to be liberal. Core fundamental tenets of feminism can be summed up in 4 key points. Women are oppressed. Why is it patriarchy, 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 hi, 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 hi.